Welcome everyone to the regular, this is actually a special forum, but it actually falls on our regular date for our meetings for the month of June. Actually, it's 1 week early. So this is a special forum meeting for the Tea Party, and on our agenda you will notice that we have 2 forums today. One is for the Drain Commission, and the second one will be for the Road Commission. But before we get into that, we're going to start our meeting and quickly go into the forum. So I'm going to ask Carol to come up and give us our opening prayer.
Thank you. Stand with me, please, for our prayer. Father, we welcome your Holy Spirit presence here tonight, bringing your peace. The world has faced another significant healthcare scare, but you were there through it all. It did not surprise you. We look to you for help, answers, and guidance. You give us strength, peace, and hope. Thank you. Now we are focusing our attention on the upcoming local elections in our county. Give these candidates strength and courage to speak honestly to us so we can make informed decisions on Election Day, August 4th. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
And where's the flag?
Okay. On this one, Tim, how are you doing today? We're going to ask Tim, one of our veterans, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah. He's brought us back to the Tea Party, and I'm glad that he's in attendance today.
Thank you very much. Okay. Excuse me. You want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And again, I welcome you this is probably one of the first open forums that we've had. Interestingly enough, in March on St. Patrick's Day, we were supposed to have a presentation by the Road Commission. That Road Commission failed because of the pandemic. So this is the first meeting that we've had since that time. And I'm going to introduce the candidates today. We have the incumbent in office for the Drain Commissioner, Joe SUMA. And we have the challenger and former, I'll be still sitting on the board, for the County Commissioner, Incumbent. He's the challenger. And what we're going to do is allow the incumbent, we'll allow 5 minutes for opening statements from each one. I'm going to allow the incumbent to start.
Joe SUMA, you're the Lapeer County Drain Commissioner. I've also been a Road Commissioner for 8 years. I had SUMA Asphalt, 47 years serving the community for SUMA Asphalt. I'm a 50-year resident of Lapeer County, 35 years in supporting and working for the spring auction for 4-H. 7 years as the Imlay City Christian School Board member when my child was going to school out there. 8 years as the Road Commissioner again, and 7.5 years serving as your Drain Commissioner. I've been working at the job from day one, trying to work the drains that are in trouble, and in finding the job coming in, most of the drains in Lapeer County are in trouble. I've been working ever since. We did have an in-house crew, and I eliminated when the foreman resigned. Eliminated that, and I've been hiring out and using an engineer for inspection and bidding process. I believe that we've been doing well with that, and I hope to continue. It'll be you, the voters, that decide, so I can use any vote willing to give me another 4 years. Thank you.
Okay. Ken?
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. On behalf of myself and the entire Eastern Michigan Fair Board, we'd like to welcome you. This is our new community room, and we're extremely proud of it. So we're happy to have everyone here tonight. My name is Ian Kemp. I am a current Lapeer County Commissioner. for District 7 from Emily City and Almont. I have been serving, this is my 20th year serving in that capacity. My wife and I own Kemp's Emily City Florist in downtown Emily City. We've been doing that for 15, 16 years, something like that. You know, I have to say that about 23, 24 years ago, there was a need for the community to step up and for someone in the community to step up and kind of come into the fair and change it around and do some positive changes and really, quite frankly, if you will, keep it from the chopping block. I, along with a number of people from Emily City, decided to step up. I was appointed as manager. I have been the manager now for, I believe this would have been my 23rd year. And as you can see, I think we've been quite successful in my tenure here at the fairgrounds. The same thing shortly after that happened. I actually was approached by a number of folks, and they said there was some need for some change on the county board. And I decided to accept that challenge, and I decided to run for Lapeer County Commissioner. I've been the commissioner there now for 20 years. I'm extremely proud of the work that we've done. I'm extremely proud of my fellow board members. Lapeer County has consistently been in the bottom 3 or 4 lowest taxed counties in the state of Michigan. And the way I really gauge if that's good, bad, or indifferent, quite frankly, is I go out and talk to the people. And I say, what do you think about your county services? And just about every time I get, well, are you from the road commission? And I say, no, I'm from the county commission. And they say, oh, I like my county services then. So that's just, Dale's back there chuckling. Dale used to be a fair manager here also, so I got to kind of give him that jab. But recently, and I guess in all due respect to Mr. SUMA, we have a little difference of opinion in the way that department should be running. We have a little difference in opinion on the way that some of the philosophies there should take place. And hopefully we're able to discuss those here tonight, because I do think there is a clear difference in the two philosophies and the two management styles. So with that, thank you all again for coming, and hopefully we can get our questions answered. Thank you.
All right, with that said, now we are going to start with the series of 7 questions covering just basically general generic type of topics. And I'm going to start with, I think I'll start with Mr. Kemp on this one. Number 1, explain your perception of the duties and responsibilities of the Drain Commission.
Well, first off, the Drain Commission is governed by the Drain Code of 1956, which I happen to have a couple copies of right here. And you know, at its very core, the Drain Commission the Drain Commissioner is charged with the drainage of the surface waters within the drainage districts for the county. It really is, their duty really boils down to that. There are some other things that they are responsible for. There are some things that they're responsible for in Lapeer County. They are also our Public Works board, and so there are some, over the years, none in recent history, but there have been some things like the Almont Water Tower, I believe the Clifford Water Tower, several pump stations that they are also responsible for. That's primarily, in a nutshell. And of course, they're probably their biggest challenge, if you will, is when they do a drainage district, is to also spread those assessments. And that's a very challenging thing and a very large part of the job. And of course, what most people think about when they think about the Drain Commissioner. There are also, one more thing, there are also several dams in the county. Given the recent experience up in Midland, certainly that's a key issue.
Okay. Mr. SUMA, your same question.
That was a good coverage of it. We have 6 dams that the drain office is responsible for. They are inspected on a pattern agreed to by the state on how dangerous they are or not. We have 3 of them that are high risk. When I came in, all 6 of the dams needed a lot of different work. One particular dam had 1.5-foot trees on the back side of the dam. The inspection reports say you need to clear it and give a 20-foot window for breathing. I've been working at all the dams each year, trying to do a little bit more and more on straightening them up without putting a big bill on them. We do have the Lake Nepsing Weir. The last report, Ian says we need to make a plan to replace the pipes in the road. My engineer is working on that right now, and we're planning on having that accomplished yet this year. We did the weirs themselves about 4 years ago because they were in trouble and falling apart. We left the road to try and get as many years out of it as possible. When it was installed, they were 60-year pipes. 12 years later, I'm there working on the weirs, replacing the ends of the pipes. And here, roughly 16 years later, they have to be redone. Lake Lapeer, a lot of tree trouble. They were mowing the top of the dam themselves under their lake roof. And I took that over and hired a company to mow and open it up. Wind Lake Dam, tree growth and other stuff along the fence lines. We cleaned that out. We've been replacing the boards that were starting to leak on the boards that hold the water back. Multiple drains in our area. So I've been working at trying to straighten out what we have.
All right. Any reply to? Okay.
No.
We will go to question number 2 then. This will be to Mr. SUMA. What do you see as the most pressing needs for infrastructure or capital improvement project in the county regarding a drain project?
Pressing need, the funds to do it. We have 4 petitions in the works right now, which are a complete study and redo of the drain. Each one builds up a cost factor as we go, and then that has to get spread across the drainage districts. We, as far as county in itself, we have too many bad drains to try and do them all at once. So, in order to spread the cost factor and still try and keep things going, the ones that have come forward, we're continuing work on. The ones that don't come forward but maybe have a problem, we've continued to go out and fix that problem and start looking at what the drain itself, entire drain, would be. As far as the worst package, there are many bad packages. I don't have a particular one that I would say you have to jump out in and worry about.
All right. Same question to Mr. Kemp.
Well, it's interesting that we brought up funding and the funding for the drains because quite frankly that's one of my core things. So we have about approximately 300 drains in the county of Lapeer. So even if you said we're going to do a major overhaul, and when a drain's petitioned, it takes about 2 years from the time that drain's petitioned to the time you put a shovel in the ground. So it's not a overnight process. And with 300 drains, if somebody did 10 major projects a year, it would take you 30 years before you ever got all the drains done. So that's a little bit mind-boggling to wrap your head around. But when we talk about the finances, you know, I think that's really where we have some disagreement. I'm under the impression that the best way to manage any department is to spend taxpayers' dollars wisely. And I think that we made a huge mistake when we got rid of the crew and just said we're going to subcontract everything out through attorney firms, engineers, and some contractors. I think we really lost control, and I think the numbers prove that out. You know, and if we can kind of set the stage here, there's basically three major funds in the drain office. There's 101 general fund, which is also administrative. I'm going to have to do this in two different things. There's the 638, which is the drain equipment and maintenance fund. The 801, which is the special assessment, or all of the assessments coming into one fund that goes to the treasurer, and then the drains at large. I will respect the time and get back to that.
All right. Keep that thought then. We'll go to, down to Mr. Kemp on this one. What is your experience with preparing and authorizing budgets or accepting bids on proposed projects?
Well, I think my experience is 20 years sitting in the county commissioner seat, certainly with what we've done down here, but mainly with the county commissioner. We have a $21 million general fund budget at the county. I'm the chairman of the Buildings and Grounds Committee, so all of the actual infrastructure bids for the county do come through my committee. And I think I have a very good grasp on the numbers and the funds and the budgeting portion of this job, which I think is, quite frankly, a major portion of the job. You know, I'm not an engineer, Mr. Suma's not an engineer. When you need an engineer, you go hire an engineering company. But having a handle on the taxes and the people's money, that's the most important thing in my opinion. And you know, there are four major funds. They range anywhere from, and I have to apologize because my numbers are from the 2018 budget, county budget. The 2019 budget is actually not complete yet because it's due in June, but with COVID, it's been knocked back a couple of months. So the only true audited numbers we have are 2018. But you know, your budgets go anywhere from $619,000, almost $620,000, all the way down to $213,000. And again, I will respect the 15 seconds. Okay. So I really believe that we need to spend that money a little bit more wisely. We need to go back to hiring a crew. We need to send them out. You know, they used to kind of call it the snatch and grab, where there's a log and you don't need to really go through independent contractor and you can grab it and go.
All right, I'm going to ask you to stop now. With Joe, I'm giving you that question. I want you to also answer a little bit more elaborate. When you prepared a budget for your particular department, you submitted to the county commission for approval, do you not?
I submit a budget for my office.
Right.
The county only gives us the money for the office.
Right.
Everything on the drains is billed back to the drains.
Okay.
If there's no money in those accounts, it's assessed the next year or 2 years back to the drain for maintenance. If it's a bigger project, it's spread over multiple years. The effort of money, there is no fund there to just keep using. It's money in, money out. If you're spending money to do the job, it's coming from that district. Each of the districts, in the last 3 years, 4 years, we've been doing multiple redistricting. The districts made up 100, 120, 130 years ago. Most of them have not been upgraded. We've upgraded with the new technology to reevaluate that outer edge of a district. And we've redone the district itself for percentages, giving a new balance to many of the drains. I have the Flint River inter-county drain that hopefully will be having a day review on that. Covers almost half the county in just that one drain. It drains everything north of, say, Bowers Road area. That system, along with all these other systems, has been sitting in the drawers not updated. Our files are still almost all paper. With the reevaluation of the drains that I've been doing, the engineering and attorneys have been also copying for the computers so that we can try and update the system in the computers and to the people of what these drains are so that the proper people pay. People that are in get their share of that bill, and people that shouldn't be in are taken out and no longer have to support that drain.
Okay.
Sound good?
Okay. Now, you have a 1 minute period to reply, both of you. So, Ms. Smith, do you want to reply?
Well, I think with, all the drainage districts are basically like little corporations, so they're all individual. What Joe is talking about with the county commission, what comes in front of us, is the 101 general fund or the administration fund. So we only have control basically over salaries and employees that are directly involved in the drain administration portion of the drain office, not actually what's being worked on in the drains. Those are totally up to the drain commissioner. But when we talk about this and we're looking at the special assessment, the legal cost since 2012 when Mr. SUMA took office, the legal costs have gone up 416%. 416% from 2012 when it was $62,544.21 to 2018 when it's $322,967, which is actually more than half of all the money that's in that special assessment fund or the money that's used to create and repair drains.
Mr. Suma, you have a reply to that?
Yes.
Okay.
If we're going to do this work and upgrade, it's going to cost money. 2012, what did get done? Anything? Is there any legal needs? Each time you evaluate a drainage district in file, the attorneys are spending the time to make sure that drain is what it is and where it is and the district for it. That costs money to do. We have 5 petitions in the package right now. We had one 4 years ago. Every time you do a petition, you have a lot of legal and engineering costs, which are the numbers he's talking about. And in order to do those bigger projects, as they haven't been done in several years, are going to be bigger projects and spend more money. I believe that he's mentioned a couple of times here in trying to push the in-house crew. The in-house crew in 2012 spent over $60,000 in sitting in the barn time. I reduced that to $33,000 when I came in 13. And I challenged my employees to work, and my employees left. Working with the local landscaping company, the miscellaneous tree removal and stuff, I'm now able to move that company in within a day or two after a call. And then it's done, and it's done at a much, much cheaper price than the cost factor from the in-house crew.
Okay. Brings us to the next question here. Do you plan, this is to you, Mr. Suma, do you plan to promote any changes in the operation of the Drain Commission?
Plan to change?
Anything in the operation? You mentioned something about your digital.
I'm continuing to work on the digital part of the drains and have that backup. A couple of years ago, I was asked by the county, what's important in this office if you have to leave it for 30 days or 6 months? And the only thing in our office that's important to the drains is those drain files, and none of them are computerized. 5 years ago, I was told I was next. I still have not been contacted by anybody to start copying. There is, as I mentioned earlier, the attorneys and engineers working on the drains that we're working on are building packages under their work so that we will have that going forward. Presently, everything in the office is paper.
Okay. Mr. Kemp? Same question?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things. You know, number one, there's a software package that is out there that is used by just about every drain commissioner, drain office in the state of Michigan, which is the BS&A software package. It comes in two separate parts. One of those parts was actually purchased for Mr. SUMA, and he sent it back and does not use it. It's used by just about everybody in the state of Michigan, every drain office. You know, if we look at even like our website, there's a website that's provided for every department in the county. It's very common on those websites to have drainage district maps that you can look at. It's very common to have right-of-way maps. It's very common to have rules to review for stormwater drainage. It's very common to have procedures to file an appeal, and none of that is on the website. That, quite frankly, doesn't take any money. It takes some time and it takes some effort to do. We severely need to move this office technology forward, and it needs to happen sooner than later.
Okay. Any reply?
Yes,
Okay.
and I've been wanting to do that, and there's no funding in my budget to do that. And it's not supposed to be paid by the drains, it's supposed to be paid by the county. That's technology.
Okay. Mr. Kemp, is there any reply to that?
Well, yeah, a number of that it's zero money. You can go on the website and you can put that information on that website. That's not a cost at all. You know, the general fund budget for Mr. SUMA's office in 2012 was $322,134. In 2018, it's $200,031.81, or a difference of $108,000. And where that drop was in employees. That is employees coming off the top on that administrative budget. You know, there is money there. It's all about how you spend it. You know, we have at the same time we did that, we laid off those employees in 2000, and those numbers are for 2015 or 2012. In 2015, we spent $250,000 on an excavator that was used 3 months and sits in the field rotting away. It's not about not having the money. It's about spending the taxpayers' money wisely. And my time's up.
All right, I'm going to go on to the next
Can I get a
question.
rebuttal on
I'm going to give you some leeway. Go ahead.
that? The $250,000 machine is sitting as a reserve, can be put on a truck within a couple hours and go to an emergency. We just had an incident in the bay where emergencies were needed. Other contractors are available, but not always. I know that I can spend a couple hours to put that machine ready to go and put it on a road commission truck and get it to a problem if we've got a major problem. That is why it's sitting there. Why it was bought was for my foreman to go to work and do in-house work, and then he chose to leave. So I had the machine sitting there without a foreman. From that, it's there, it's available, and I think it's a good reserve.
I'm going to go on to the next issue here. This one is for Mr. Kemp. When managing public agencies, is it better to have more employees at a modest wage or a few employees at a wage high enough to attract quality applicants?
Well, the answer to that it's neither, quite frankly, and it's both. Because you have to be able to attract quality applicants, and at the same, so you have to pay a wage that does that. At the same time, you know, you have to. The more people that we can employ, the more people that get the job done. You know, the more hands, the less work. You know, certainly, you know, I don't know, but I've never seen an attorney dig a ditch in my life. So paying, you know, and there's a couple of attorneys in the office today. I bet you that they would tell you that probably $250 an hour is not a real high wage for an attorney. So, you know, when you ask that, I think it's more important that we spend the people's tax dollars wisely, and we look at what we're spending that money on. You know, with all due respect to Mr. SUMA, this machine has not moved in 5 years. There was an attempt to start it, my understanding was, earlier this year, and they couldn't get it started. The batteries are dead on it. The batteries were replaced once and they're gone again.
The batteries were not replaced.
Then I apologize for that, but it hasn't moved. And my understanding is, from the folks at the road commission, that it will not start at this point. So I don't know what kind of backup that is, but that's certainly not a suitable backup. And even if we were going to put it on a road commission truck and move it, who's going to operate it? Because we don't have people to do that. You know, one of the big things with the crew is it does give you that backup. We talked about the dams earlier, and there are spillways on those dams. There are some aluminum logs on those dams to keep lake levels at the right height. And we don't have any people working for the county other than Mr. SUMA that are trained and can operate those.
Mr. SUMA, same question.
We have the county requiring me to pay 14 and change, over 17 and change for the foreman, for a truck driver with a CDL Class A, able to run an excavator, dozer, any other miscellaneous equipment, including chainsaws and lawnmowers and trimmers, and be able to maintain all of that for $14 an hour. You're not going to get an employee worth a darn at that wage. I was told, well, you need to prove otherwise. So if I'd have hired new people when my foreman left, I'd have been fighting each year to go out there and try and work with these people instead of trying to get something done, to train them and work at what they're needed. If they come in there with skills, they're not going to stay there long when most of the market out there is 2 or 3 times that price. And for me to spend a year or 2 or 3 years to prove to the county that I need to change that price is not worth the effort. I'm getting good dollars for my construction companies we're hiring. I'm getting quality engineering, which it calls for quality engineering to work out and inspect a drain for anything over $3,000. That is where I'm living, trying to keep it controlled and move it forward with getting as much as we can done. I believe the in-house crew with the dollar ranges we're stuck at is risking all of that as a company with no benefit as a company. The county's at risk, each district's at risk every time those people are out there. A hired firm comes in with a workers' comp policy and a liability policy. So if something goes wrong from them, it's covered. Something goes wrong in-house, those drainage districts or the county or the combination will end up with a debt.
Mr. Kemp, I'm going to allow you to reply, and I'd like to interject a comment because I used to attend your meetings until, of course, the pandemic barred me from entering the door, but this has been a discussion with governmental agencies across the board. Outsourcing versus in-house, and the hindrance that the county has at the low wage rate that Lapeer County seems to offer cannot attract the personnel that's necessary to fill that position. So I'd like your comment.
Well, yeah, okay, and I would say that that's just not true, quite frankly. And I'll give you an example. If we put out a help wanted to hire a deputy, I think a sheriff's deputy, the last time we had 75 or 100 applicants. And the difference is yes, you can go, and we know that you can go to Genesee County, Oakland, Macomb, St. Clair County and make more money. But we also have very good benefits in Lapeer County, and a lot of people here stay for both our retirement system and our benefits. You know, we have about, I think at the low end, we had about 400 employees, and we currently have about 480, 490, something like that. And we have a lot of long-term employees. Our employees retire from the county. So there are a lot of people that are happy there. You know, when we talk about it, you can't hire. We also have a situation in the county, with the county commission does, where we have what we call a labor market exception. And we've used this in the past. We've used this in environmental health. We've used this in nursing. We've used it in a number of areas where if it doesn't fit our schedule because it is too low, because there's that demand out there, you can apply for a labor market exception. And you know, you'll have to prove it. There's no doubt about that. And quite frankly, if that's the case, I think I can prove it. But you can get those wages bumped up. And there are, I would submit to you, I believe for the wages that the county is offering and the benefit package, because that's important, that we could get good, solid employees in those positions. We've done it in other areas throughout the county. I mean, we have people, animal control. We've just hired a wonderful young lady that has a 4-year degree from Michigan State in animal control, in animal sciences. So we're not hurting on hiring people.
Mr. Summa, you have any reply to that?
I still think that the wage bracket we have, unless it's monitored and changed, will not bring a crew worth putting out there. And again, any in-house crew is a risk to the county and the drainage districts, which are independent groups, which would have to foot a bill for liability or injury.
All right, thank you. We will move on to the next issue here. And let me see. Somebody help me out here. Who did we leave off on next? Who was the first?
I think I had the first one on that.
So you had the first one? Okay, so this is Mr. Kemp's question. Explain the fundamental importance of the successful operation of the drainage commissioner in Lapeer County. How important is this position?
Oh, well, this position is extremely important. Quite frankly, you know, there are a lot of people out there that will tell you that the drain commissioner is the most powerful person in government in the state of Michigan, more powerful than the governor. Now, since probably this little pandemics broke out, they wouldn't say that. But, you know, that's kind of said tongue-in-cheek, because the drain commissioner is the only person that can assess taxes without a vote of the people. The county commission can't do that, a judge can't do that, the treasurer can't do that, the drain commissioner can. You know, the drain commissioner, there's basically a few ways this happens. The drain commissioner can spend up to $5,000 a mile on a drain on maintenance without anybody's permission. If you're going to go above that, you can go above that. This is for maintenance only. You can go above that with the local municipality's permission. Again, without a vote of the people. Now, if we're going to petition, either petition A for a new drain, maintenance is basically you can't widen, you can't deepen, or you can't change the path of a existing drainage district as how it was written when it was conceived. So that would be maintenance. You're going to take the silt out the bottom, you're going to take the sides back to the way they originally were in the original plan. If you're going to do any of the rest of it, if you're going to change, it's got to be petitioned. So there are a number of times, like I said before, it's 2 years to get from point A to point B. But the drain commissioner does not have to get approval on any engineering fees. The drain commissioner does not have to get approval on any legal fees. So, you know, when it comes to your taxes, the drain commissioner is incredibly important. And in fact, you know, most people have no realization as to that. In what we call the Verberg book, which is the Bible of county government, it actually says that most county commissioners, and it says it right in the book, don't understand the importance of the drain office. So we're probably guilty too.
Mr. Summa, your response to the same question.
Good explanations. Thanks for the work. The drain commissioner has the power, as he said, 5,000 per mile or piece a mile on any drain. Each year, assessed back to the drainage districts. That's spending money before it's taxed as in most everything else, has to be taxed and raised and then spent. So, in the drain office, as the drain commissioner, we have the power, if used, to abuse the entire county. If used correctly, to benefit and balance and help the county. We've got roughly 540 miles of drain in Lapeer County. $2.5 million more that I could go work and assess without anybody saying anything and billing that back to everybody in this community, including the county and the townships. I've stayed away from anything max, but I'm also out here trying to work at cleaning up a mess that's gone on for years. If we're cutting 3-foot trees out of the bottom of a ditch to make that drain function, it's been a while since we worked on a drain. We're working on one Marshall drain in Elmont right now. I went out there and you could not see the ditch because of the dead trees laying over the ditch, completely covering it. I believe there's a compromise to the cost, and I've been working at that compromise to move things along, spend a little bit more, but get things moving along and accomplishing. I appreciate the time on that. Thank you.
Okay. Any reply, Mr. Kemp?
Well, you know, you talked about that nothing's gone up, you know, incredibly. That again, the drains at large, and what the drains at large, let me explain that just for a minute. Drains at large that's the cost that is assessed to a municipality or a government for the benefit of public health that they are derived from that drain. So, for instance, Emily City has the Bigelow drain that runs right through it. Emily City gets a benefit, public health benefit from that drain, which is then assessed as drains at large. The problem with that is the county also gets drains at large, and the county's drains at large in 2012 were $78,000, and in 2018 are almost $375,000, for an increase of 376%. Now, you know, is that we're doing that much more work, or is that we're just not spending that money wisely?
Mr. Suma, I'm going to ask you.
Where is the number for drains at large on 2018?
In the county audit, right here.
So that must be where the county paid up instead of taking the long-term debt. They paid it on top of everything else.
That is no, that was across the board. I was talking 2018 because it's the last audit we have. And I was talking 2012 because that was your first year in office, so it was, in my opinion, established a baseline.
My budget, allowable to try and stay at, for the counties at large, has been $160,000 a year. I have met or been under that. We in this year's budget, I was granted to go to $200,000, which is the county share of expenses. The number you're got to be bringing up is where the county decided to go ahead and pay, probably Indian Creek, pay their full amount instead of putting it over multiple years. If they put it over multiple years, it would have fitted in to their annual budget allowed for the drains. It was $160,000 annual budget. It's now $200,000, not the number he's throwing out here. That was allowed by them as their board deciding to pay ahead of time instead of taking the loan.
I have a question. I'm going to interject here. Mr. Kemp, you're on the county commission.
Mm-hmm.
He submits his budget to you as part of to you and the board for approval. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
The only thing he submits to us
Is the
is the administration portion. That's the only thing. The drain commissioner solely sits, or so I shouldn't say sits, He is solely responsible for spreading that assessment, and that is an assessment to the county or the taxpayers. So it is solely the drain commissioners. Now, could the county commissioners come back and say, okay, we're gonna knock your knees out by taking some money out of your administrative fee or your administrative budget? Yes, we could do that. Would that be probably vindictive and not the right thing to do? Absolutely. But that number is set forth by the drain commissioner, whoever he is. And it's not like it's, I mean, it's not like it's a loan. Once it's billed, and that's what was billed in 2018, that's what you owe. So, of course, we choose to pay it off every year, at drains at large. In 20 years, we've never not paid off drains at large every year.
Okay, all right, I think that,
Can I have another piece on that?
yeah, you can have a
Drains at large, given to the county board for my budget is $160,000 for, I think, the last 4 years. It went to $200,000 for this year. Anything above that was approved by the board prior to getting their bill. They approved the higher amount paid, paying in advance rather than putting it on a long-term debt.
We're going to leave that as a bone of contention. It's that the citizens would have to go to a county meeting and see the working relationship between the Drain Commission and the County Commission. That's what makes this interesting race so interesting. All right. Question number 7. Explain the maintenance and/or infrastructure costs or fee structure associated with the infrastructure projects undertaken by the Commission as it affects citizens, property owners, or governmental units, i.e. special assessments, ad valorem taxes, etc. This is basically a follow-through from your previous discussion. So I'm going to give that to
I think I'm
Mr. Suma.
You say that over again?
Sir, that's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I was going to ask him the same thing.
Okay. Explain the maintenance and/or infrastructure costs or fee structure associated with these projects undertaken by the Drain Commission as it affects citizens, property owners, and governmental units. So basically, what I'm driving at is how is the individual citizen affected by taxation? So that's independent of districts. How is the government affected by the drain districts? And the property owners, the adjoining property owners with special assessments. So I'd like you to elaborate a little bit on that if you can. It's basically the heart and soul of each project that comes forward.
So if you took a district,
Right.
as I had mentioned earlier, we were redoing these districts. We're redoing all the percents for all the property owners, the townships, and the county, and train tracks. They also are tied in separately, and the state of Michigan for roads. Each government entity, the county gets their share for benefit to the community, as well as any share of road count, the county roads. If it's a state highway, the state gets a billing for their share of the road highways. Each township that's in that district gets a portion of that district to their cost. Then we get down to the properties, and properties are broke down for their benefit of that drainage district. When somebody's sitting off 2 miles from where the drain is, why am I in that? Because the drainage from that area all goes through that drain, and here's your percentage. And that's what a day review of our districts gives the people the opportunity to come to the office and discuss why they are, how much they are, and where they are. And those are interesting days if anybody has a day when they want to drop by during the day review.
Okay.
June 30th, we're having one for the Peasley drain.
Okay. I noticed something was, is that the one that was back on Mayfield Township offices?
Yeah.
Yep, I just saw that yesterday. All right. Mr. Kemp, your same question.
Yeah, I think to answer that question, and I think think Joe did a fairly decent job of that, but I think to really answer that question, you've got to go back to the history of drains and the history of the drain code in the state of Michigan. And what most people don't understand is that the drain code was not written for the majority. The drain code was actually written for the minority. Or as Joe explained it, those people that are getting the most benefit out of that drain. So that benefit or that code book kind of protects them. So it's not just one person that happens to live right next to that drain. It's everybody that goes back that their water flows down. Obviously, the further it flows, the more water it picks up and finally gets to the drain. Certainly that's never more prevalent than in our agricultural society, our agricultural community and our agricultural businesses. That's really where you can see the impact of the way that those assessments are spread. Now, kind of historically in the state, in Lapeer County, those were generally spread on a 3-tier type of a system. The one that was closest to the drain received the most, and then there were 2 tiers going back. What's important is that can be spread any way the drain commissioner wants to, as long as he can defend it. Because of course anyone can challenge that at any time. There's several times in that process that can be challenged. But as long as the drain commissioner you could spread it equally amongst the landowners if you could defend it. There are also people in Lapeer County that don't have a drainage assessment. Maybe all their water goes into the Flint River, and they're not part of a drainage district. That does happen. You asked about technology earlier, and one of the interesting things is, with the maps on the website, wouldn't it be convenient for somebody, especially that was interested in buying a house, to be able to go click and see if that address was in a drainage district and what that drainage district was assessing?
Just to follow up to both, I'm going to let you reply, I'm just going to make a comment. I did some research before I came to do this moderation, and I pulled up the Drain Commission. And our beloved Senator, Kevin Daly, has made a presentation on the internet of the importance of drains through the state of Michigan and dealing with agriculture. So it was interesting that you bring that up, because agriculture is one of the main industries. If you don't drain the fields, and we have what we had last year with all the wetlands and the water, completely catastrophic effect on our agriculture last year. And that was because of Mother Nature. But with that, I'm going to let you follow up again. You have a response.
That same issue. Drains were created for the health and welfare of this community because people couldn't live here because it was too wet, and the diseases that were coming out of the wet grounds were killing us off. That's where drains started, to make it livable in Michigan. The benefit, additional benefit from that was you now dried up more and more ground that was able to be farmed. The combination, being able to live here and being able to farm. That's where the drains come out of. And that's where now, as we're living a pandemic, don't maintain the community, and we may have our own pop-up from bad diseases coming out of swamps and wet grounds. We've got a lot of trouble out here, and I've been continuing to try and work at cleaning it up without making the county go broke.
Okay. That was number 7, but I'm going to, because we're doing so well on this, I'm going to give a bonus question here. Explain why you think, each of you, so who did we leave off on?
I got that.
Explain why you think you're the best candidate for this job right now. Mr. Sue? Yeah.
Am I next?
I'm going to give you that chance.
I believe I'm the best candidate. I've got 7.5 years in here, punching and changing directions to make our drains cleaned up and draining this system. I've got several projects in the works. I'd like to continue them and get them going and continue to work at doing the drain work in this community. I am of age to go ahead and retire, but I have decided to try and get another 4 years serving our community and making these drains in better condition so that we can live here. Thank you.
Mr. Kemp?
Well, just to put it out there, I'm not of age to retire, so I'll be around for a while. But you know, I really feel like there's some. First off, I feel like my 20 years of experience as a county commissioner puts me in a very unique spot to be the drain commissioner. I think I see a little bit maybe deeper into the policies, into the procedures of the drain office and how they affect our community. I'll give you a little, for instance. You know, in 2018, the federal government put up about $600 million, and that went through the USDA in the form of grants and loans to communication companies to expand rural internet, rural high-speed internet. Now, the problem, how does that affect Lapeer County? Well, the problem is that the drain office has a policy of only accepting cash bonds when you work on or around a drain. So basically, the companies came in and said, well, we're not going to come in there and bring you a bag of cash. That's not the way the business works. So we can come in and do this work in your county. We're not going to tie up our cash. We're going to come in to counties that will allow us to have a surety bond, and we're going to post that. We're going to put in these high-speed internets. I've had a couple of you know, discussions with some people that work for the school system up in North Branch that were very upset about this because, quite frankly, they don't, you know, their kids need high-speed internet. You know, I think that's kind of a difference. The real difference there is if you get the cash bond, you can hold that cash, and if something goes wrong, you got the cash, you don't have to do much about it. And there is a process if you're going to get a surety bond and something goes wrong to get that cash back. You can certainly do it, that's what it's there for. It's a longer process. I'll do that work across the board on those processes for the betterment of the entire community, not just when it directly affects one of our drains, but when it affects the community and the drain office can, you know, their policies can affect good public policy.
Okay, any response from you, Mr.?
I went with the cash bond when I created the permit due to the fact that if you got a surety bond, and our attorneys here could talk about that, when you try to collect and take that time, you're spending time and money of a drainage district that shouldn't have to spend time and money for the privilege of a utility. The utility has come along and wants to go through that drain, and your district has all the risk of anything happening to that drain. A cash surety bond, and it's not a bag of money. People write checks or wire it in. It covers the possibility that if there's a problem, you can take that money and fix the drain rather than fight the issues down the road to try and get the drain fixed. Thank you.
All right. Now I'm going to, again, a bonus question because we're doing well on time. And I just want you to, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. You'll do a summation, and then the audience will be allowed to participate in a 15-minute question and answer. And the way we'll do that is we'll ask you to raise your hand. We'll have you stand, come close, social distancing and all, and address your question to the candidates. All right. This is specifically to the Drain Commission. Explain the catastrophe which transpired in Midland with the destruction of the Sanford Dam and the loss of Woodson Lake, and if anything similar could occur in Lapeer County. And I guess, Mr. Kemp, I'm going to ask you to address that first.
Well, I mean, the obvious answer is anytime you dam up water, the dam breaks, something similar could happen, right? That's pretty easy. You know, like Joe said, I think we have 6 dams in the county. You know, one is, which is the dam that is out on Caldwell Road, is the only, I believe, federal dam that we have in the county. We have several private dams in the county. I think that's really where the situation that came up in Midland. You know, I think it's probably, I mean, my gosh, how much finger pointing's gone on about that dam situation in Midland, right? It was the Attorney General's fault, it was Eagle's fault, it was the governor's fault, it was the dam company's fault. You know, I read an article in the Free Press, I think it was today, about all the lawsuits that have come out of that dam. So obviously the answer is that the dams that we have, and I think Joe and I both agree on this, you know, we need to make sure they're safe and they're secure. You know, we have the wind dam has a spillway on it, and that spillway has to be, you know, opened and closed. I was talking with a past drain commissioner, and he said that that lake could actually be drained in about 30 minutes with the capacities that that dam has. You know, so certainly, you know, our dams need to be, there needs to be, they need to be maintained, they need to be taken care of, I think we're probably very lucky that we don't have the number and the size of the dams, the privately held dams, like we had in Midland County, you know, in Lapeer County. So, is it important? Absolutely. Do we have one body of water that's going to have an effect like that, that's behind a dam? No. That the drain commissioner controls? I don't believe that we do.
Okay, I'm going to ask the same question of you, Mr. Summa.
Okay, North Branch of Mill Creek, high hazard, there are homes and stuff that would be at risk if that dam blew. It has 2 large spillways, they've never spilled. So, we do get the bigger and bigger rains. At some point, something might happen there. A couple of years ago, we redid the inlet, built a road back to it so that we can get to it, because the present way in at the time was through one of the spillways, which if soft and wet, you can't even get back there. So under the property that owned in front of it, I worked with them, and the board bought that property so we could have a drive going back to the dam. We redid the inlet of the dam. Wind Lake, we're just gone through replacing all the boards for holding the water back. In one time when Lapeer flooded, Wind Lake had given out, they were looking at lawsuits and they studied that. If Wind Lake blows completely out, Lapeer City is lucky to get 1 or 2 inches higher in that flood for that day. So there's no big risk there. Lake Metamora did blow out, and it was rebuilt. That's a high risk down through several property owners all the way to Lake Lapeer. We are presently, I've been working year after year at moving the trees and brush off the back of it. We are presently in discussion with the Lake Board for putting a liner in the pipe that's there, because each 3-year inspection is showing more and more damage of the pipe, so we're looking at getting a liner in there and extend the life of that dam.
Okay. So with that, I believe we will start with the summation, and that will be Mr. Kemp.
Wait, we're going to take questions from the audience first?
No, we're going to do the summations first,
Okay.
and then we're going to do the questions, and then we'll have that theory.
Would it make more sense to do the questions first, so we can,
That's
if we
what
want to,
well,
that's the way we normally do it.
include that in our summation, that would.
Okay, well, if you choose to do it, it's fine.
That would be better.
All right. Any questions, Bill?
Well, you guys know who I am, and there's a small room, so we don't have to worry about sound. But knowing that they're already projecting over a $3 billion deficit for this year, $3 million next year, and probably $1 billion the following year, not getting back to normal 4 months ago until maybe 2025. We are all looking at a huge cut. I'm going to ask both of you, and it doesn't matter who goes first, but how do you intend, because we're all going to have to do with less. unless we get some kind of miracle from the federal government, which I'm personally not in favor of, because we put ourselves in this place with a lot of the stuff, we're going to have to do with less. So how would you propose, is this something, what are your thoughts, what are your priorities going to be moving forward in this new reality that we're dealing with for the next few years? Mr. County.
Well, first off, I'd like to say, and I appreciate the question, I decided to run for this position long before I realized that the county was going to be put in that situation. You know, it's going to be, budgets are going to be very tight. There's no doubt about it. There's going to be a lot of, you know, we're projecting at least a 30% cut in revenue sharing from the state. A 30% cut in revenue sharing for the county looks like about $550,000. So you can do the math if it was a 100% cut. And the county revenue sharing is not statutorily mandated. So you're absolutely right. The interesting thing about the Drain Commission office is, with the exception of that admin budget, is that you really are directly, it is probably the most direct one person to one landowner ability to tax that there is. And so, you know, projects still have to get done, right? We don't want to put everything on the back burner so that in the future somebody else has to come and do something, or that we have a major incident, major rainfall, and it's not done, water's not flowing. So you still have to do things. So I would submit that the most, you know, it's so important to get every single, you know, penny out of that dollar and stretch it as far as you can, and have the ability to really look at every single project and every single process that you are doing. Is that really giving the taxpayers the biggest bang for their buck? And that's only going to become more important as the budgets tighten, and personal budgets tighten. Because let's face it, that's who it really comes back to.
Joe, got a response to that?
My efforts as the Drain Commissioner will be to try and control any major expenses as we go, and still work on our drains the best we can. I've got 4 petitions in the system now that have been in that 2-year window, getting up to getting it done. If you just set them aside, they're only going to get worse and worse. As I go along, I'm going to try and work projects that can work and not bury our community with cost. You're getting very good dollars from the contractors right now yet, and we're getting a very good interest. If that interest rate skyrockets, you try to do something with a multi-year project, it's going to get very expensive. So in that package, I plan to move forward carefully to do the work we've got coming and not bury our county with major expenses. Yes, he's shown that I've been spending, yes, but I'm spending from what was not spending at all for maintenance necessary out there.
Anybody else like to approach with a question? Well, there you go.
What percentage of Lapeer County wetlands have been drained, and what impact has this had on areas that have been drained compared to areas that have not been drained?
Well, I'll answer that. 22 years ago, when I first ran for county commissioner, or 21 years ago, a very good friend of the family's, when we were talking about my campaign and running for county commissioner, gave me the advice of, if you don't know the answer, say you don't know the answer, and I don't know the answer to that question. I'll just be bluntly honest with you. So there you go, Joe.
And you said you were going to answer that question.
I did it to the best of my ability. I would get back with you with the answer, because I'm sure we could find that out. But off the top of my head, I do not know the answer to that.
I got a paper laying in the drawer from the general that was investigating Michigan. And they got to Elmont, and they said, there's no sense going any farther. It's not livable. We live here now, across the entire state. So a lot of stuff has been drained, and a lot of stuff is dried out. Wetlands, I've got a petition going right now in Elba Township. Due to failure of the drainage that was there, the area flooded up. Eagle says, well, it's been there for 3 years. It's wetland. We may have to mitigate the wetland. We're working right now on that permit to try and keep it at a zero loss, because as we brought the water down, we still have a wetland. And we're working with Eagle on that to maintain the balance of that site and allow them, people on that drain, to live there. It was right up to their windows the day before Christmas. It was that way 4 years ago.
You know, just to add one thing from a little historical note, because Joe stimulated this. In 1873, my family came to Emily City. And the reason they arrived in Emily City was because they came across from Sheboygan, Wisconsin on the train. And the train stopped in Emily City because it didn't go through to Port Huron because of the wetlands and the muck. And they were cobblers, or my great-great-grandfather was a cobbler, got off the train, and there were so many loggers that needed their boots repaired and quite frankly, I think he was out of money. That's how we ended up at Emily City, because of the wetlands. So,
Well, just to follow up historically, we ceded land from north of Toledo that was from Ohio. Ohio says we don't want it. Why? Because it was totally wet. So they sent in the Army Corps of Engineers and everything was drained. But if you notice, every report, downriver is always flooded because it's notoriously wetlands. Now the interesting thing is we have all these beautiful tributaries and rivers. You know, we have the main, what's our main river?
Flint River?
The Flint River. Yeah, and you know the North Branch is the North Branch of the Flint River, and they got the South Branch down in Mayfield Township area there. They all flow, and we bring up the pandemic, zoonotic diseases. What does that mean? That means diseases spawned by mosquitoes and pests and pestilence, and those are the diseases. And interestingly enough, I own a horse ranch. And what am I doing? I'm inoculating all the animals, and yet we don't spray in this county for mosquito infestation. It's horrible. We're the only county that does not spray. I brought that to the state representative, and it's an issue, and I think everybody around.
well, a little bit of response, because at one time, and I don't remember how many years ago this was, but we did put that on the ballot as the county commission. And it failed miserably. So, you know, that was a tax. And again, you know, the interesting thing about the Drain Commission is whoever's there, that they can tax without a vote of the people. The county commission cannot. And we put that on specifically for a mosquito abatement program, and it failed miserably. So,
I believe Ridge Township has been spraying for several years. And they
Individually, that's
they as a group support it.
Right, but the county-wide, I was living in Tennessee, and Tennessee had, you know, we have West Niles. We have all these zoonotic diseases. If you look into the research, it's terrible. You've got to get rid of the pestilence.
there are very strong feelings on that both directions.
Right. All right, so with that, Bill, you got a question?
Yeah, I know we talked about, you guys mentioned that there was not even real recent stuff, but I remember maybe 10, 15 years ago, whatever it was, when we got the 5.5 inches of rain, and lots of bridges in North Branch got washed out. That's something, I mean, that could potentially happen. We got a former storm supposed to get us tonight, I guess. We're supposed to get a lot of rain from this storm that's coming up tonight. But, and that's drain commission, that would be in your purview as well, correct?
If we have our drains blow out, we're in the mess.
Okay.
But you monitor that, do you not?
The
Weather.
Well, you monitor as best you can, and as it comes.
the only reason I mention that is...
That's why there's an excavator sitting there available.
Is Sunday, I actually was up, and I went through Edenville and Sanford Lake, and you talk about people, and it's funny now because the videos are gone, and people are just moving on, and I tell you, you talk about devastation. See a number of folks posting about laughing because they have lakefront property now. Not what people don't realize is those lakes flooded historically. They were the highest level on record just before those dams broke. So all those houses were flooded, and there's no insurance. It was not in a floodplain. They couldn't get insurance, and most regular insurance will not cover that. So all those houses, and when you look, and it is monumental, just the mess and the wreck that is up there. And you know, and I did hear this afternoon that there was there's something filed today. Not a warrant, but they were looking for stuff, and the subject wasn't the people. It wasn't about the cause. It was about the effect of the muscle, and that was filed today by our state government. I just thought that kind of puts it in
You know,
perspective.
just a quick follow-up on that, because I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding of that. People think that all drainage in the county is under the jurisdiction of the drain commissioner, and that's just not true. Only those districts are under the jurisdiction of the ones that have actually are within a district. A lot of, in the case that you're talking about, some of the road washouts were not in a drainage district.
So that's road commission.
That's road commission.
Road commission, this year, responsibility. Which means that the second part of this forum is the road commission, because I thought it was brought to my attention, it's very appropriate to have the two forums together. All right, with that, I'm going
Can I
to
give one item?
Absolutely.
We're presently working on the street drain that's going to be redone. And because it's in Elmont with a lot of housing, standard drains are built in a 10-year storm. We're doing the subdivision areas in a 50-year storm, and the open ditch that drains them in a 100-year storm because of it dumping into the river, which has a tendency to flood back on everybody. So we're building that whole system to try and protect them at a higher level of rain.
All right.
Good enough.
We are going to now start our summation. 5 minutes each summation for each one of you, and I'm going to start with Mr. Kemp. You will be first this time.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you all for coming. You know, I don't think anybody would ever claim that the drain commission, the drain office was an incredibly sexy part of government. You know, I got interested really in the drains and the drain commission office when I first started as a county commissioner. We had a number of great battles. Our drain commissioner was St. Clair County Drain Commissioner on something we didn't even touch on tonight, which is an inter-county drain. And there was a gentleman over there by the name of Fred Fuller, who was their drain commissioner. And Fred Fuller had the idea that we were going to put logs in the creek, and the water would rush underneath the logs and wash out the silt, and it would be this big, wonderful, environmental friendly way of you know, clearing a drain. The problem was it didn't work. It was a great idea, but it didn't work. And the water was backing up, and that was at that point in time, that goes all the way back to when we only had 5 commissioners, and a lot of that property was agricultural property that was in my district. So that's really when I first got interested and involved with county drains. You know, and this is the county drain code of 1956. And if you look at this book, it's all dog-eared, it's tattered, you know, it's been around. And the reason that is because this was given to me by John Cousins, who was our drain commissioner for 30 years in Lapeer County. And I think most people, well, obviously he was reelected every 4 years for 30 years. And I'm very proud to say that John has given me his full endorsement in this race. You know, I think there's differences. I think I have proven in my 20-year tenure at the county, I think I've proven in my 20-year tenure here at the fairgrounds that I'm not one that's really good with spending money just for the sake of spending money. I really try to dig in and make every dollar count. And I think that's incredibly important, especially in the climate that we're going to be moving forward in. You know, this is the new copy of the drain code, and everything you are allowed to do is in this book. Everything. And it's a very well laid out book. Interesting enough, when Governor Schneider rewrote a number of the codes and had folks come in and rewrite the one code that they kind of left alone because of its complexity and that it worked very well was the drain code. So it has not really changed much. Some of the numbers have. You know, the amount of money you can spend per mile on maintenance has doubled in the last, probably 25 years or 20 years. But the code itself has remained the same. And I believe that this is a position that I am uniquely qualified for. I believe I can serve the people of Lapeer County extremely well, and I believe that I am the best candidate for the job, and I would ask for everyone's vote come this August. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. And after that, Joe, I'm going to ask you the same summation.
We have 261 drains. We just had this morning 2 drains that were separately Lapeer County and Sand Lake County became inter-county drains due to what I had told you earlier about the redistricting of the district. The engineers found that there's land in Lapeer that joins a drain in Sand Lake, and there's land in Sand Lake that joins a drain in Lapeer. This morning we made them inter-county drains. There will be a day review on that to the people that are in it to evaluate where they are and what they are. That's coming up. I believe I've done the work necessary. I've modified. I've done just about every style of work you can do, spending for the drains, from the miscellaneous to the full petition projects. And I've been doing it. I have projects in the works. I'd like to continue doing those projects and finish them out somewhere in the future. I truly believe that I am the one that can carry that out and keep an eye on the county and the people of this county so that we don't bury you in costs and we don't try to go back to something that doesn't work. I appreciate any vote from anyone out there so that I can stay on the job and serve you, the people. That's what I've done my whole career in this county. In my paving career, in my road commission career, in my drain office career. I'm here to serve you, the people, and I want to continue to serve you and believe that I can do the job and do it well and move this county along. Thank you.
And that concludes our meeting.
That date. And there's a pile of cold patch asphalt there. Now, I don't know if they expect the citizens going to stop and shovel it in the hole. That date. And there's a pile of cold patch asphalt there. Now, I don't know if they expect the citizens going to stop and shovel it in the hole.